2020 was a fantastic year for Japanese RPGs. I think there were several titles that were legitimately excellent games and a lot of good to great ones. So in this video, I want to go over 7 of the fantastic JRPGs that were released on the PlayStation 4 in 2021. Remember, these are just 2020 PS4 JRPGs, so no Xenoblade Chronicles, nothing that was released on the Switch, nothing that may have released on PC exclusively there. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. And I want to kick things off with Ys Memories of Celceta. So this is a game that originally released on the PlayStation Vita, and it was a great title on the PlayStation Vita. Ys in general is always super consistent. You can always find it to be a great game with awesome combat, great music. The visuals aren't anything to write home about, but I don't think JRPG players are really going into Japanese RPGs for great technical visuals outside of a couple titles. But Ys Memories of Celceta was a great game, and it took the PlayStation Vita title, brought it over to the PlayStation 4, brought it over at a budget price point, so just about anybody could pick it up on day one. And while I wouldn't say the game is as good as Ys 8, there's nothing to really be shameful about in that regard, because Ys 8 was such a great game. Ys Memories of Celceta was still a good one, and now it's accessible for a lot of people as it is available on the PlayStation 4, also available on PC if you'd rather play it over there. Next up, we have a franchise that was dormant for quite a while, and that is Sakura Wars. Sakura Wars has seen a couple releases over in Japan, but over here at the stateside, prior to this one, we only got one Sakura Wars title. It was received well from a critical standpoint. Commercially, obviously, it didn't do well enough to justify the release of other Sakura Wars titles, but now we got another Sakura Wars game coming from Sega, and it released just a few months after the Japanese release, and it was a pretty good game. Now, the thing about Sakura Wars, when you're going into it, you have to be of the mindset that this is very much a Japanese RPG that is tailored to the crowd that is regularly playing these Japanese types of games. When you talk about the big budget JRPGs, they can also be accessible to a mainstream Western audience. You're not looking at Sakura Wars for that. Sakura Wars, however, has pretty solid anime-like visuals. It has a really good character interaction, and I think from those elements, from a presentation standpoint, it is quite good. Is it fundamentally one of the best JRPGs that you're going to play of the year? No, but it has that certain charm and je ne sais quoi, so to speak, that does make it an enjoyable game, even though it has its imperfections, but I felt like it was relatively easy to look past them. Hopefully, this is a game that is eventually ported to other platforms as well, because I think it could thrive on the Nintendo Switch, I think it could thrive on PC, so let other people play it as well, because we need the Sakura Wars IP out there and as much people as possible playing it, because at this stage of the game, it is still one of the more lesser-known JRPGs. Okay, next up, Trials of Mana is one that definitely deserves a shout. This is a game that I remember leading up to its release, I was not that hot on it, and then Square Enix decided to put out the demo, and my opinion of it completely shifted. It was a great revival of the Mana franchise, and the visuals I thought were excellent, even though I wouldn't say that, once again, they're not technically grandiose in any stretch of the imagination, but it was presented in a very, very colorful way. The characters are super vibrant, and they're all likable, and there's a level of replayability with the game as well, and at this point you can get it relatively cheap. Trials of Mana had the unfortunate fate of being released right around the time of 2 other major JRPGs that we'll get to, but if you beat those 2 other JRPGs that you could probably think of, but we'll get to it later in this list, Trials of Mana is one that's definitely worthwhile to go back and give a pickup to. It's going for like $20 now, and I'd give it a strong recommendation. Just a great game, and there is a demo available still, so if you want to check it out, available on Switch, PC, and PlayStation 4, so a lot of options in how you play it. Next up, one of the JRPG franchises that I will continue to be a shill for, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 4. Now, getting super deep into Trails of Cold Steel 4 will give spoilers to the other 3 titles. Just be of the mindset that Trails of Cold Steel is a fantastic JRPG, that Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2 were really good. Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4, there is quite a bit of divisiveness in regards to the storytelling elements. I won't get into that all too much. You guys should play all of the Trails of Cold Steel games. Even if you get off-put by some of the storytelling elements in number 3 and number 4, they're still great games with great characters, solid turn-based gameplay that Yes, turn-based to some people is a little bit dated, but I just thought Trails of Cold Steel did it pretty well, and the music is really solid as well, and a lot of twists and turns. Trails of Cold Steel 1, if you're starting it right from the beginning, just be of the mindset that a lot of it is laying the foundation for what happens in the subsequent games. Legend of Heroes is just such a vast IP with so many story threads and narrative arcs that if you want to know everything, it takes quite the plunge, and you gotta play a lot, or you gotta at least look into the lore, but I think if you do look into everything, it's quite the rewarding experience. I would give the entirety of the Cold Steel franchise a look, starting with 1, play them through in numerical order, 1, 2, 3, 4, of course. And Legend of Heroes as a franchise is still long from being done. While Trails of Cold Steel has wrapped up, we are going to continue to get Legend of Heroes titles, so that is pretty exciting. One title that I would recommend you guys to explore. Next up, we have Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. Now, this is the refined version of the Dragon Quest XI game that released, I believe, in 2018 on the PlayStation 4. This is just the definitive version of a JRPG that was already really good. Some additional content. You've got a 2D mode and an orchestral soundtrack. All of that coming together in the game makes this the premier version of DQ11. Would I have liked to see this game in the form of a DLC for DQ11? Absolutely. It sucks that for the people that already own DQ11, you gotta buy the game again. It is released at a budget price point, so that softens the blow a little bit, but yeah, this is the definitive version of an already great JRPG, and if you've never played DQ11, really get on it. Yes, it has some old school elements to it, but they've modernized it enough that even to a 2020, 2021 audience, you can get super into it, and if you have like a PC, it's on Xbox Game Pass, so it's super cheap to get into if you have an Xbox. Again, Game Pass, and on PlayStation, it's a JRPG that's so good that it's worth the price anyway. Okay, moving on from that, Persona 5 Royal, 50% off right now. Actually, it's $30 on the PlayStation Store, so that's something to note. But P5 Royal obviously gets a mention on this list. Persona 5 is considered by many to be one of, if not the best JRPG of all time. A lot of people will go that far with Persona 5. The base game was tremendous. When you're talking about Royal, some of you guys will think that this is just a slightly enhanced version with a little bit of extra content. No, this adds so much content, it is ridiculous. Again, I wish they would have released it as DLC, but Persona 5 is one of those games that can get away with it. The fandom is so strong for the game that they can resell you the game with a significant amount of additional content. New scenarios, new characters, and so much additional content that it just makes the game even better than it already was, and people, again, already considered it to be one of, if not the best JRPG of all time. Visuals hold up so well, music is excellent, characters are fantastic, turn-based gameplay is solid. What more can you say about Persona 5 Royal? It is tremendous, and it deserves a strong recommendation. If you're holding off on it, again, it's $30 right now. It's going up for Game Awards, so yeah, I would definitely check it out. It's one that's worthwhile in every sense of that word. And also, if you never played Persona 5, I mean, come on, at that point, Royal is just a no-brainer. Lastly, I gotta give a mention, my favorite JRPG of the year, and probably the game I am the biggest shill for, Final Fantasy VII, the remake. I could probably do a 40-minute video talking about the Final Fantasy VII remake, my predictions on where the franchise is gonna go, because there is obviously going to be a Final Fantasy VII remake part 2, probably a part 3. You can talk about it forever. Visuals are stunning, gameplay is great, the characters, falling in love with them once again is just such a ride to go through, and we know, I mean, everybody knows they're changing some things up with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I feel like at this point that is just common knowledge to everyone. If you played Final Fantasy VII back in '97 and you're expecting a one-to-one recreation in the FF7 Remake, which is something that a lot of people expected going into the FF7 Remake, this isn't that. It is that to a sense for a little bit, but then you'll see pretty quickly things are going awry, what is happening, and then by the end, everything gets blown up, and now we are on an unknown path in Final Fantasy VII. And let me just say, I couldn't be more excited in that regard. I love that it's going in a totally new direction. Look, Final Fantasy VII can exist in the game that it is. If you want to play it, you can play it. Yes, it would have been nice to go through that experience one-to-one with the visuals that the remake brings, but now I have this aura of uncertainty in where we're going, and yes, it could be an absolute train wreck, it could be amazing, but I am just buckling up for the ride, because even if it is a train wreck, hell, at this point, I'm gonna embrace the train wreck, I'm gonna have fun with the train wreck, and let's just hope it's not a train wreck and it's a lot of fun. What we can say, all the content in the FF7 Remake is tremendous. And this portion of the experience, and I don't want to say portion, making it sound like this is a gimped game, this is a portion, this is a small section of a game, which, if you compare to the original Final Fantasy VII, yes, it is a small portion of the original Final Fantasy VII, but they have fleshed it out so much that it does encompass a 30, 40. Some people will take 50 hours to complete the game if you want to really do everything. It is a lengthy, lengthy game. Voice acting is great. Visuals are tremendous. Gameplay is great. I can go on and on about how great of a game the FF7 Remake is. You probably already know at this point. If you haven't played it, just go ahead and buy it, and you're not going to be disappointed. So that's going to conclude this video. Again, this year brought with it a plethora of great JRPGs, and heading into next year, man, it's looking packed as well. Scarlet Nexus, Tales of Arise, Final Fantasy 16. There are so many great JRPGs coming out in 2021 that it's a great time to be a fan of the genre, and now we're seeing more localizations from Japan over here to the West. Ys 9, Monstrum Nox, of course, that's 4 JRPGs right there that would be an incredible headline for any year. I'm probably missing quite a few. Could we see Grand Blue Fantasy Project Relink next year as well? Yeah, when you talk about all those games, it's going to be a stacked year. But 2020 was already pretty good. That's going to wrap up this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.